Welcome to The Debate. So in the next 5 years, up to 15% of the jobs we know today might just completely vanish.
Yeah, which is a staggering number.
Right. But the reason isn't just that the technology is getting smarter. It's actually driven by a 19th century economic rule. So today we are asking really the most critical question facing the workforce.
Especially if you're an HR leader or, a strategic manager trying to build an organization right now.
Exactly. Are we entering an era of task substitution where AI simply replaces human labor? Or is this a story of, profound human augmentation?
And that 15% figure is exactly why this conversation matters so much. We're taking our framework from the latest analytical models, which highlight this massive shift in how we structure organizations.
Right. But before we go further, let's be clear on what we actually mean by agentic AI. Yeah, we aren't just talking about a chatbot that, generates a polite email.
No, not at all. We're talking about autonomous systems that can execute multi-step workflows entirely on their own. I mean, they can research a problem, formulate a plan, execute the software tools to solve it, and then actually check their own work.
Right, and because of that capability, I will be arguing that this technology acts fundamentally as an engine of human augmentation. By lowering the cost of producing an output, agentic AI unlocks what economists call expandable demand. It basically allows us to redesign roles for much higher value, more strategic outcomes, rather than just triggering mass displacement.
Well, I take the opposite view. The augmentation narrative really glosses over severe structural displacement. I'll be arguing that agentic AI creates very real substitution.
Okay.
It hollows out entry-level pathways and directly replaces core tasks in sectors where demand is strictly capped. I mean, the damage to traditional organizational structures is going to be immense.
Well, okay. To understand the augmentation side, you really have to look at the economic mechanism driving it, specifically the Jevons paradox.
Right, the 1800s coal example.
Exactly. It's an observation from the 1800s when technological efficiency improves. Say, steam engines get better at using coal. It lowers the cost of using that resource. Counterintuitively, people end up consuming vastly more coal, not less.
Because, the cheaper it gets, the more applications you find for it.
That is the core of expendable demand. Let's look at the source material's prime example, the software engineer. Agentic AI can dramatically accelerate code generation, run automated testing, even spin up basic environments.
Right, which sounds like fewer engineers are needed.
If the world only needed a fixed amount of software, sure, you would need fewer engineers. But demand isn't fixed. Organizations across every industry have a nearly infinite unmet need for digital products. As AI reduces the cost and time required to build software, organizations don't fire their engineers, they just build more software.
But software engineering is an anomaly.
Is it?
Yes, it has infinite demand. If we apply your logic to a role with capped demand, the whole augmentation argument just falls apart. Our data estimates that about 12% of all current jobs are what we classify as substituted roles.
So roles where demand is inelastic?
Exactly. Meaning, if you make a product cheaper to produce, your customers won't actually buy more of it. The company just pockets the savings.
Okay, give me an example.
Think of a financial analyst at a mid-sized corporation. The volume of financial analysis that company needs is tied to strict, unchangeable cycles.
Quarterly earnings, things like that.
Right. Quarterly earnings, annual reports, rigid internal investment boards. When an agentic AI is deployed to pull the data from the enterprise resource system, identify the quarterly variances, and write the initial financial model,
the corporation doesn't suddenly demand 3 times as many reports.
Exactly. Just because they're cheaper, they don't need more.
But I would argue those analysts are now freed up to do deeper, more predictive analysis on market trends, rather than just formatting Excel spreadsheets.
I am sorry, but I just don't buy that the math works out perfectly for the workforce.
Why not?
Because in these environments, the workflow is fundamentally bifurcated, meaning it is split into 2 completely separate tracks. The agentic AI does the heavy lifting of the modeling, and the human senior analyst signs off. You simply do not need as many humans in the building to achieve the exact same output.
Even if they're doing higher order tasks?
Even then, we see the same mechanism in call centers. A massive percentage of customer inquiries are highly defined. Account lookups, policy explanations, scripted troubleshooting. When an AI agent reliably resolves those repeatable inquiries end-to-end, the overall employment in that facility undeniably declines.
Look, I see the logic, but let me give you a different perspective on what happens when demand is bounded. Because you are equating capped demand with guaranteed substitution.
Because it usually is.
Not necessarily. The data actually shows us a third category, which accounts for 14% of current jobs. These are rebalanced roles.
Rebalancing is often just a polite corporate euphemism for doing more with less.
Well, let's look at the mechanics of it before we write it off completely. Consider content marketing. Demand there is absolutely bounded by rigid marketing budgets.
Right, a brand isn't going to spend infinite money on campaigns just because copywriting is cheaper.
Exactly. However, look at how the market is behaving. Audiences are fragmented across platforms, and customer journeys are insanely complex. Brands need content delivered in highly personalized, targeted ways.
Okay.
So what happens to the copywriter? The AI absorbs the routine task of drafting 50 variations of a social media post. But the marketer's role doesn't disappear.
Wait, if they aren't writing the copy, what exactly are they doing? Explain the mechanism there.
They evolve into an omni-channel strategist. Previously, you had an email marketer siloed in one corner and a social media manager in another. They spent 80% of their day just generating the assets.
Sure.
Now the AI tool doesn't just write the text. It gives that single marketer the analytical capability to parse engagement data across every platform simultaneously.
Huh.
The human spends their day forming hypotheses, looking at audience segments, and orchestrating massive A/B tests. The routine creation is automated, yes, but the strategic value of the human is elevated.
So for an HR leader?
Right. For an HR leader, this means your headcount stays steady, but your mandate is to completely redesign the job description and upskill that talent.
I have to challenge the friction of that upskilling process, though. You are describing a frictionless transition where a routine copywriter seamlessly transforms into a strategic, data-fluent, omni-channel director.
Not frictionless, no.
But in the real world, human capital does not pivot that smoothly.
It requires serious training investments, certainly.
It requires an entirely different baseline of cognitive agility. If you are an HR leader listening to this, you are probably wondering how you actually execute that transition on the ground.
Fair point.
Let's go back to the call center. You might have a fraction of those representatives who can naturally transition into high-value, complex relationship management, dealing with the most irate customers or the most nuanced edge cases.
The escalations, basically.
Right. But the vast majority of that workforce was hired specifically for their ability to follow structured, predictable workflows. You can't just wave a magic wand and rebalance 500 script readers into 500 bespoke relationship managers.
Well,
The overall employment in that specific role shrinks. The rebalancing narrative assumes that the displaced workers are the exact same people who will fill the newly elevated roles. Often they are not.
okay. That is a fair challenge regarding the friction of transition. And I can see that the individuals filling the new roles might change. But if we broaden our view to look at how AI integrates into daily work across the entire economy, the narrative of mass displacement really loses its teeth.
How so?
We have to look at the roles where the physical and contextual nature of the work provides an absolute shield against substitution.
The enabled and limited exposure roles.
We have 23% of the workforce in enabled roles. Think of clinical assistants and lab technicians. Their core responsibilities are inherently hands-on.
Right.
Agentic AI embeds into their day-to-day. You have ambient AI listening in the exam room, instantly updating the patient's electronic health record and flagging potential drug interactions. But the human remains the physical anchor of the job.
Okay, that's the enabled bucket.
Then you have another 34% in limited exposure roles. Physicians, teachers, social workers. This is work dependent on real-time interpersonal judgments and empathy that simply cannot be codified into an algorithm.
Yeah.
Add those up and you have 57% of the workforce where AI is just a tool for empowerment. It raises the baseline for productivity and accuracy, but it doesn't fundamentally alter the organizational structure of the hospital or the school.
I agree that highly contextual, physical roles are protected in the near term. We aren't facing a reality where a robot administers a flu shot tomorrow.
Right.
But focusing on the extremes, the infinite demand of software engineering on one end and the protected physical labor of healthcare on the other, it ignores the massive structural tension brewing right in the middle of the knowledge economy.
And you believe the middle is where the system breaks down.
I do. And this brings me to what I consider the most critical vulnerability for strategic managers to understand right now: the destruction of the entry-level pipeline.
Okay, walk me through that.
The data identifies 12% of jobs as divergent roles. This is where the specific tasks are highly substitutable, but the overall industry demand actually is expandable.
IT support and insurance sales are the classic examples here.
Let's dig into the granular details of an IT support technician. An agentic AI copilot doesn't just suggest fixes. It can read the server error logs, automatically reset the network credentials, patch the software, and close the ticket without a human ever touching it.
Which is incredibly efficient.
Yes, but those are the exact, highly structured tasks that have traditionally been handed to an entry-level tech in their first 3 years on the job. So the junior positions are entirely automated away.
But the senior responsibilities, complex network architecture, disaster recovery, those persist.
They persist, but here is the terrifying paradox for anyone trying to build a resilient organization. If you automate away the first 3 years of a career, how do your workers build the contextual judgment and the intuition required for the senior roles?
Well,
Senior network architects don't just spring into existence. They learn the quirks of the system by spending years manually diagnosing routine ticket failures. By substituting the bottom of the ladder, AI structurally collapses the pipeline for future talent. You might look at an IT department and see the same total headcount today, but if they are all seniors and you have no mechanism to train juniors, your organization is fundamentally hollowed out.
wait, pause there. When you say the entry-level pipeline structurally collapses, aren't you assuming that the only way to learn a complex profession is by grinding through the lowest level tasks?
It's how it's always been done.
But if we view entry-level work like a traditional apprenticeship, an agentic AI now handles the sweeping the floors equivalent of data gathering and routine ticket routing. Doesn't this simply force us to redefine what an apprenticeship looks like?
Sweeping the floors is how you learn the layout of the factory. You learn where the machines are. You hear what they sound like when they are running normally, so you know when they are breaking.
Or sweeping the floors is just sweeping the floors, and it actually keeps you from learning how to operate the machines.
That's a stretch.
Let's use your insurance sales agent example. Yes, AI automates the basic risk profiling and quote comparisons for standardized products like basic auto insurance. But there's massive latent demand out there.
In insurance?
Yes. Think about small mom and pop businesses that are wildly underinsured for cyber liability or supply chain disruption because it used to be too expensive and time consuming for an agent to build a custom policy for them.
So the AI lowers the cost of servicing them.
Exactly. It unlocks that latent demand. Now, what happens to the 22-year-old entry-level insurance agent? Instead of spending their first 3 years doing mindless data entry, they are paired with an AI copilot. That copilot walks them through the complexities of a commercial policy, analyzing the client's risk profile in real time. The junior worker is instantly elevated to a policy advisor. We aren't destroying the ladder, we are replacing it with an elevator.
But
it absolutely requires a massive shift in how HR leaders design training programs. We have to move from assembly line training to modular, simulated training. But ultimately, this accelerates human capability.
you are fundamentally changing the risk profile of an entry-level employee when you do that.
How so?
Because if an AI copilot is guiding a junior employee through a complex commercial insurance policy, and that junior employee lacks the foundational intuitive judgment that used to be built through years of routine manual work, who catches the hallucinations? Who catches the edge cases?
The AI is augmenting their analytical capacity. It doesn't replace their accountability to review the final policy.
But accountability requires deep understanding. Let me give you another analogy. We don't expect modern accountants to use an abacus, right?
Right. The abstraction layer simply moves up. We rely on the calculator.
But an abacus is just a calculator. An agentic AI is making logical inferences. Relying on an inference engine you don't understand is vastly more dangerous than relying on a calculator.
I see where you're going with this.
If the junior IT technician has never manually diagnosed a server failure because the AI always resolved the routine tickets, they will be paralyzed when a catastrophic, novel system failure occurs and the AI doesn't know what to do. You can call it drudgery, but that drudgery builds the internal mental models required for complex problem solving. We are going to find ourselves with a workforce that knows how to operate an AI dashboard perfectly, but lacks the fundamental domain expertise to fix the underlying system when the dashboard breaks. That is the true hidden cost of substitution at the entry level.
I think that underestimates human adaptability. But, well, we are reaching the end of our time, so let's synthesize where we stand.
Sure.
When you look at the macro data provided in the source material, the reality points heavily toward augmentation. Between 50% and 55% of all jobs are going to be reshaped. These are your amplified, rebalanced, and enabled categories.
Right.
Add to that the 34% of roles with limited exposure, and the vast majority of the workforce is looking at an environment where AI lowers costs, triggers the Jevons paradox to expand demand, and shifts human labor towards system-level thinking, strategic orchestration, and relationship-centric care. The narrative of mass economy-wide substitution is frankly overstated. If you are an HR leader or a manager designing a team, the mandate is clear. Lean into human empowerment. Embrace the AI co-pilots and build aggressive systems for rapid upskilling.
And I would conclude by warning strategic managers not to let that macro-level optimism obscure the severe localized damage that is coming. The data explicitly states that 10% to 15% of jobs are genuinely vulnerable to total elimination.
The substituted roles.
Yes, the substituted roles and the junior layers of divergent roles. When you factor in the downward wage pressure in cap demand sectors and the structural collapse of the entry-level training pipeline we just talked about, the friction of this transition is going to be immense. Substitution is real, and it is highly disruptive. Assuming that everyone can be seamlessly redeployed into higher-order strategic thinking just ignores the messy, complex reality of human capital.
Well, it seems we do find convergence on one absolute truth here.
Which is?
Regardless of whether a role is augmented or substituted, continuous upskilling and strategic redeployment are no longer just corporate buzzwords. They are mandatory, baseline requirements for survival in the modern workforce.
Oh, I completely agree. If you are leading a team today, you have to look at the specific elasticity of demand in your own industry. Ask yourself, if we can produce our output for half the cost, will our clients buy twice as much? That answer, more than anything else, will dictate your trajectory.
Right. Think back to the way we have traditionally built organizational structures, like rigid assembly lines where everyone had a perfectly defined box. As agentic AI dissolves those boundaries, the question isn't whether your structure will change, but whether you have the vision to design a modular, adaptable system to take its place.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on the debate, and we will leave that final conclusion in your hands.